Those who do not have any press materials yet, would you please raise your hand?
And
now it's time. Chairman Kakawa, microphone is yours. Today, this is the weekend, and it is rainy today, and thank you for joining us again in today's meeting. And now we would like to start the 19th meeting of NAIIC Commission over the weekend. I really appreciate the observers and commissioners and the media people and the people of Japan to come over or listen to our upcoming meeting. Well, 6 months were already passed since the commission members were designated, and we are doing whatever we can do to compile the final report. In a way of explaining our activities, I would like to take you through the results of the questionnaire we have done, and also we would like to do the clarification points. Number 2. Then, can I first explain to you the results of the questionnaire we conducted. In our commission, as I said earlier, the people of Japan, the world, and the future are the 3 major axes on which we direct our activities. In order to do the investigation from the people's point of view, well, that is the important perspective. We thought that we should have the affected people's voice heard. So we conducted town meetings, and also the people in the disaster areas or representative of the affected areas, and the government people were approached by us in a way of witnesses or by conducting surveys. This survey actually was conducted with target of the affected people, and immediately after the nuclear accident, there were people of the TEPCO as well as its affiliated companies who were working there, and there was another survey conducted for those people working at the site. But we will include the results of these 2 sets of survey in the final report. But today, I would like to take you through the outline of the survey conducted to the affected people in the disaster area. Can I invite Mr. Yokoyama to report? To report on the results of the survey. Yokoyama, Commission member, I would like to explain to you the results of the questionnaire conducted to the people evacuated. Actually, this survey sheet, the respondents were 10,633 people. Response rate was 50%. And also more than 8,000 respondents had additional comments on the free description column. And also 431 people actually gave additional comments in the back of the questionnaire sheet envelope or in separate sheet. This is the pile of the response papers, and a number of people wrote their comments on the backside of the survey sheet. So we thought that it is our responsibility to convey the feelings, strong feelings of the evacuees to all of you. First of all, point 1 is the delay of the issue or the transmission of the information accident by the government actually led to the confusion ultimately. The second is that evacuation instructions were somewhat ad hoc, and there are many people who had to evacuate many times or evacuate to the high dosage area, or people who couldn't really take their belongings. And third is that we could feel the vivid pains of the people who were forced to evacuate and problems were not resolved. The immediate response is sought after. First, in terms of the transmission information on the accident, this is the first point. I would like to go in details. Excuse me, would you please go back One slide back. I think there should be someone, some. Okay, that's fine. Okay, please proceed. On March 11th, 1542, the Article 10 notice was made, and Article 15 notice was made at 1645, and declaration of emergency was issued at 1903. Despite those facts, not many people, the residents, knew about all those notices. Their recognition levels were very low. Even in the disaster, subject to evacuation, there was a big gap in terms of the speed with which information on the accident was conveyed. As you see in here, Futaba, Okuma, Tomioka, Naraha, and all those towns closer to the site. From the 10-kilometer evacuation notice, more people started to know about those notices for when the 10-kilometer evacuation instruction was given. And this one shows how many people, or how did they know the instruction evacuations for their area where they live. Well, actually, through the local governments, the residents started to know primarily. So there is a good communication between the local governments and the residents. Because the source of that instruction came from the local governments. But depending upon the local governments, there was no real communication by the central government to the local governments of the evacuation instruction. And there was certainly a problem in communication between government and local governments. This one shows the source of instruction of the evacuations, or from where the people knew about the evacuation instruction. Well, as you see, the local governments and families and neighborhood were the major sources of instruction, not necessarily from TV, radio, internet, though those media were of very important sources as well. Now, this one shows the evacuation on the voluntary basis. Well, how many people evacuated on their own arbitration? There was instruction to stay in shelter at 11 o'clock on March the 15th, and voluntary evacuation instruction on the March 25th. But in that Murakawamata Machi, although it was apparent that these were very high dosage area, deliberate evacuation area was designated, were not designated immediately. I think there was a delay in judgment of the government, which area be subject to the evacuations. Next page. And this one shows the evacuation to a higher dosage area. As shown in here, approximately 50% of residents of Namiemachi, although temporarily, went to the high dosage area for evacuation. So I think monitoring information was not really disclosed timely. There was a delay in disclosure of the monitoring data. This one shows the expansion of the evacuation area and the multiple step evacuation instruction. Futaba-machi, Okuma, Namie-machi, and all those towns, more than 70% of the residents had to evacuate 4 times and over. When you look at the yellow-colored graph, this one shows the evacuation of 4 times. So approximately 70% of residents have to evacuate 4 times. And also 20% of Namie-machi residents have to evacuate 6 times or over. When you look at this chart, the closer the areas were, more frequently the resident had to evacuate. So there was a major problem in how the instruction was given for evacuation. This one shows the preparedness, ex-ante preparedness. Even when the nuclear power plant site, there was no drill for evacuation prior to the accident, and there was quite a limited number of residents who participated, even if there were. I would say at highest, 15% of the residents had experience of the evacuation drilling before the accident. And this one shows the number of the residents who had experience of being brief about the possibility of nuclear accident. The result shows the less than 10% of the residents have that experience. There are many responses that we received, and I would like to give you some anecdotal response and comments given by the respondents. Of course, the evacuation issue was made, but the information on the accident situations or useful information on the side of residents were not really given. So a lot of people had to evacuate without having anything. They left most of their belongings at home. Let me show you some comments given by the resident. One resident of Tabamachi said, "Well, I left home and I just knew where I was going through the radio communications on emergency. It took 6 hours to reach the place where it usually takes 1 hour. And my son called me and said that we would be able to go back home soon. Then I gradually started to understand the situation. And could you understand the life living alone, separate from the acquaintances and families? When the evacuation instruction was given, some information on the nuclear accident could have been made. Then we could leave the home with the appropriate measures. For example, close the doors at home, and at least I could have got the valuable belongings with me. And the voice of the Tomioka town says that we should have been informed that we wouldn't be able to go back home. Without having any medication or something, my parents, elderly, suffered the worsening of their physical situation. And we lost houses. So we really need restructuring of the lives. The medical staff of my father's acquaintances guided us, and there's a delay in making the list of the evacuees.
From NAIIC, they were saying that on the morning of the 12th of March, they heard through the school broadcast that there needed to be an evacuation taking place to Tsushima. And I went to Tsushima Elementary School and spent the night there. And I really needed to receive more of an explanation specifically after the accident had happened. But it's very regrettable this didn't happen. And Minami Soma Machi from Odakaku, the nuclear power plant had a hydrogen explosion, but we didn't know that there was an explosion. We didn't know why we had to evacuate. And at that time, the mayor of the town was saying on TV that that time he thought we would all die, and that information should have been given right away to the residents. The information flow was very delayed, and the residents are taken very lightly. There are various comments of this ilk. Of course, there's not enough time to read all the comments, but there are several more comments I can refer to. From Narahamamachi, there was an issue with regard to concealing the accident previously. And at that time, TEPCO was saying that there would be precautionary measures taken doubly certain, triply, and quadruply certain to make certain that safety was assured. However, I do feel that we've been fooled. There are many more comments, of course. But as far as the voices of the residents that were taken from the comments section, they are open-ended comments that were made. And to make certain that there would not be this kind of accident in the future, and to take all the precautionary measures necessary, and to please make certain that you decontaminate as soon as possible so we would be able to go back home as soon as possible. And we can't believe the information and the posture that the government is providing and showing, and we can't make our expectations regard to that. And we really can't see the prospects for the future. We don't know whether we can go back soon or if our return will be delayed. It's already been over a year since the accident had happened. Please give us further guidance. And Tokyo Electric Power Company's information and their posture cannot be believed, and we can't expect anything from them. And we would like to pursue the responsibility of the country, including the government and the Diet members and the local municipalities. And we need to pursue the responsibility of TEPCO. And the government doesn't understand the situation that the evacuees find themselves in. There are very many comments of this ilk. As far as what I had just presented on, this will be disclosed to the public if you would be so kind as to refer to the content. We would appreciate that very much. We have given you materials, all the members of the commission. Do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make at this point? Ms. Hachiska, would you like to make a comment? Any questions? Yes, please, Ms. Hachiska. Yes, I am Hachiska. Here, we just have a portion of the voices that are expressed here from the residents. And I have read a great many number of those responses. And we felt very betrayed. And we went through a lot of painful experiences. And this is an expression of the pain and suffering that we've gone through. If the government and the people of the country could understand through reading and listening to the voices of our residents who are the evacuees, we'd really appreciate your understanding in this matter. Over 10,000 people have responded to our questionnaire, and so very many people have expressed their feelings through this survey. Are there any other members of the Commission that would like to make any comments or ask any questions at this point? Would it be all right then? Thank you very much. Earlier, from member Yokoyama, there was a mention that we received a lot of the surveys back, and we are taking very seriously the results of this survey. And as far as the results of the survey are concerned, we're going to be providing this to the National Diet and would like to have them utilize it for their deliberations. And as far as our commission is concerned, we are resolved to do that. Next, I'd like to go into the key points and summarize those key points. And from this point, we'd like to begin that. But before we begin that, I'd just like to talk about what we hope to achieve here as we summarize the key points. As you are well aware, as far as our commission is concerned, It's been about 6 months since this commission had started its activities, and we're going to be providing to the leaders of the House of Councilors and the House of Representatives of the National Diet our report results. And we are working very hard currently in this commission to make certain we can produce this report. And our secretariat staff members, including the members of our commission, are working very hard day and night to make this happen. And aside from the chairman and aside from members of the commission, we also have other advisors that are participating in this effort. And we have a working group that is set up, and we conduct our meetings in that working group to achieve the results that we are striving to achieve. And we have conducted our activities to that end. And as far as the discussions regarding the content of this report, we would need to publicize this as much as possible. There's all kinds of ways of thinking about this, but for those areas that are of great interest, we would like to clarify our thinking and make them clear. And this time we will be clarifying those key points. And this is our second effort to do so. And as far as the members of the commission are concerned, you have materials before you that you can refer to. For those observers, please understand that you will be receiving the revised version on the homepage of our website. We would like to have Mr. Nomura report on this, please. Yes, thank you very much. I'm a member of the commission. My name is Nomura. And today, as was mentioned, we would like to explain the key points, and this is our second effort to do so. And as far as the report itself is concerned, we are preparing that currently. We will not be touching upon each and every one of those points. We have had witnesses come and speak before us, and we also have the survey results, and we have the second meeting where we are clarifying the key points based on those results. And the report, which will be publicized, please understand everything will be included in that report. And what we are going to touch upon here is not the entirety of what will be in the report. I would like to confirm each of the points one by one. The first point, please. As far as this accident and the response to the accident was concerned, the Prime Minister's office intervened too much with the on-site people who were trying to deal with the accident. And as far as this point is concerned, I'd like to further add that yesterday there was a discussion about one of these points, the TEPCO side, whether or not they were deciding on the complete temporary evacuation of all the members of the power plant. The Prime Minister's office felt that there was an effect that was felt of the intervention on their part to make certain this would not happen. There have been documents that have been looked at, and we have conducted our hearings. This time, TEPCO did not decide on the complete evacuation of all the employees at the nuclear power plant, even if it were to be temporary. And yesterday, there was a mention about the nuclear power plant and the situation there, and there were 10 individuals that were mentioned, and there are various guesses that we can make regarding that. Mr. Yoshida when he thought about the worst case scenario, it came up with the number 10. And it was a very vague number that he came up with. And as far as TEPCO was concerned, they did not decide that it would be 10 members who would be staying on. And as far as Prime Minister Khan was concerned, he was saying that he was able to put a stop to the complete withdrawal of the employees, but that was not the case. And as far as this very dire situation that had transpired, this situation was most grasped by the people on site, and there were those members and those members of the affiliated companies who worked hard on site and did not leave the nuclear power plant. And it was through their efforts that they were able to contain the accident. And as far as the direct exchanges that took place between TEPCO and the Prime Minister's office, this was not something stipulated under the law. There had been frequent phone calls that had been made from the Prime Minister's office to the site, and this was an issue. And sometimes some very elemental questions were being asked, and this was something that actually didn't make it any easier for the people who were trying to contain the situation. So as far as the primary responsibility is concerned, the TEPCO needs to think about it, and the Prime Minister's office needs to think about the assurance of the people's safety as well.
Let me go to the key point 2. The point 2 reads that there will be a drastic reconstruction of the risk management system, including the Prime Minister's office, particularly from the point of importance of initial movements. Probably to have the risk management system which could mobilize the immediate action after the accident will be required. When the severe accident, a nuclear accident happens, the person who actually have to make a decision shouldn't have any luxury of time. It shouldn't have any time of hesitation to make a decision. Through our investigations, the importance of initial action was highlighted. At this accident, based upon the nuclear disaster special countermeasure, upon receipt of the Article 10, Article 15 notices, the initial several hours were quite crucial for the Prime Minister's office to work function. So there should have been the smooth transition from the notice reception to the conduct of the immediate actions, initial actions, and the immediate actions and the judgment should have been made for securing the safety of the residents. But actually, the implications and the importance of the notices were not fully noticed, and that caused a delay in taking the initial actions we considered. Therefore, because of that, the government couldn't really discharge its function, as shown in the survey. There was a delay in communicating accident information, a delay in issuing the instruction for evacuation, particularly with respect to the information on disaster, as shown in the survey results. People didn't know very well why they have to evacuate. Without clear forecast of evacuation, residents were forced to leave home without taking their belongings. So this was the key point number 2. Let me shift to the key point 3. Key point 3 is as follows. When the nuclear disaster happened in the emergency, particularly when the severe accident takes place at the site, the operators will have to be responsible for action. With that principle, off-site, the government will be responsible for taking action as a principle based upon the lessons of this accident. government should really have the clear command and control command system in dealing with the situation. On-site is fighting with the clock to deal with the worsening reactor reactions, and there's power failure, so in the darkness, and the situations were worsening with the increasing dosage, and that actually confused the command and control system. On their side, at head office of TEPCO, the head office of TEPCO should have assisted the on-site people, but because of the without coordinating the interventions by the Prime Minister office, the head office actually busy with dealing with the Prime Minister's office's interventions without coordinating them effectively. As mentioned in the previous meeting, at Prime Minister office, there was a call from the Tokyo Electric for the necessity of the evacuation, but there was no really actually proper deliberations done at the Prime Minister office, but there was no really such deliberation taking place for the possible evacuation of the people from the site. Anyway, there was a delay in issuing the evacuation instruction by the government, and local governments have to issue the evacuation for the people. So these are the comments or the recognition awareness that the Commission has for the point 3. Let me go to key point 4. Key point 4 is as follows. When the nuclear power disaster occurs, or at the time of emergency, the proactive, immediate, and proper risk communication is needed in advance to the evolutions of the situations. But there was no really such communication, and that really aggravated the situation for the disaster resident for their evacuation. And due to confusion of the Prime Minister's office, there was no really proper risk communication taken as revealed in the results of the survey. For this particular accident, the Prime Minister office only communicate the information which they are absolutely confident. Therefore, they could confirm. So the information was communicated in quite a limited way. So in the future, the proper risk communication be conducted for the safety of the residents of the affected area. Next, key point 5. This relates to the speedy. Various events are rapidly evolving at the nuclear power disaster. For instructions of initial movements, the use of the speedy information might be difficult in giving instruction. This is the kind of the issue. Probably efforts were made to increase the measuring points and to make the measuring points more distributed, as well as to gain the diversity in the monitoring method. And there was no really shared recognition with respect to how the speedy could be utilized in the government, and therefore was not really communicated well. And there was no really information on the radiation in by ERSS, and the speedy information was not really utilized in the determinations of the initial actions. Because of that, particularly in the environment where the events are evolving quite rapidly, the diffusion of the radioactive matters could be better grasped by a diversifying marking method, and also to have more distributed measuring points. I'm sorry, I misread the document. The Earth's information was a source of radiation, not the radiation level. Therefore, the forecast computation of the speedy was not really utilized for deciding the initial action. Let me repeat. At this particular accident, the ERSS source of release information was not really grasped, and because the evolutions were quite rapid, the speedies information was not really utilized for deciding initial action. And more importantly, particularly in the environment when the events are evolving quite rapidly, most effective in seeing the diffusion of radiation is the diversification of the marking method, and to have more distributed measuring points. In order for the effective use of the speedy information, the set of conditions must be satisfied, and that information was known to the many agencies and ministries. Quite the colossal budget was given, but there were no really efforts to make more diversified measuring points. Let me report for the effective use of speedy. Actually, the information cannot be utilized unless the set of assumptions be satisfied, and that was shared by multiple agencies and ministries. But because of the several tens of billions be invested in the speedy, the efforts were not directed to the diversifications of the marking method and the increasing number of measuring points in more distributed way. Without recognizing rightly the speedies, in the reverse estimate actually was known to the resident without letting them know that these were the post report. And I may have to give some additional comments, but the figures based upon the speed information available in public was formulated to use the reverse estimate of after the accident, and it was quite misleading, as if those informations were the useful information by using the speed information that could have led to the misunderstanding of the residents.
And the sixth point has to do with the securing of the health and the safety of the residents. And based on the regulations, the severe accident response, which is the fourth level, and the fifth level, which is the prevention of disasters or the protection from such disasters when they do occur. And there was, of course, an emphasis on avoiding responsibility, and there was not an emphasis on the protection of the people's health and safety. And so this needs to be thought of first and foremost, and also to protect the lives of the people of the country, and also to protect the people who are working on site. These are the points of point 6. And as far as these points are concerned, if you could please read these points, I'm sure you would understand the content of this. And as far as our commission and the witnesses that we have heard from, as well as the other hearings we have conducted, these are the key points that we have put together. Please understand that these are our key points at this point that we have clarified, and our report will sum up the key points. If there are any opinions or comments that can be expressed from the other commission members, please feel free to do so. Would it be all right? You don't have any comments or questions, especially as far as our commission is concerned. We have put together these key points and have presented them today and have clarified them. If there are no other opinions, it seems we have now finished with the clarification of the key points, the second time that we are doing so. Well, thank you once again for coming here on a weekend. Right now, we do not have any hearings scheduled. However, as soon as we decide, we will let you know on our website. As far as today's meeting of this commission is concerned, we now adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.
それではメディアの方にのご連絡でございますが、
To the members of the media, we would like to ask you to please come back at 17:20 for the press conference. Those of you who are participating, we would like to take a 40-minute break. Thank you very much.